Hey, Buff Nation, voice of the Bus, Mark Johnson here. Coming up this week in the Buffalo Stampede, of course, we're talking basketball. The CU men coming back from a tough road trip to the Great Northwest. We're going to talk with Associate Head Coach Mike Rohn. Also joining us is outstanding young guard for the Buffaloes, Dominique Clifford for the men's team, and the women's squad coming off a split with Utah. We'll chat with J.R. Payne all this week on the Buffalo Stampede.
The Buffs defense just blew that one. Picked up and Colorado's moving in another direction. Touchdown! Got the pylon. Touchdown. Bends off the defense with their body. Elevate and slam with the right hand.
It's a winner for the Buffs.
Ball is right in front. A couple of shot fakes to Chief Barry.
And that sound you just heard is a Buffalo stepping on a duck here in Eugene. 82-78. The Buffaloes down Oregon at Matthew Knight Arena. 82-78 as they win this one by 4. And for the first time since 2013, walk out of here with a W. How about that one, Buff Nation?
That was a great victory by the Colorado Buffaloes. Highlights from the Buffs' win last week in Eugene, Oregon, over the Oregon Ducks. Finally played that game after it had been postponed a couple of times. Back in the Buffalo Stampede, voice of the Buffs, Mark Johnson. We're here at Corelli's, where every week, Monday nights from 7 until 8, we do Buffs Prime Time. Best restaurant in Boulder, hands down. Anyway, during the show, we got a chance to recap that road trip of the Buffaloes with Associate Head Coach Mike Rohn. First off, just having a road trip of that length, that's not something we do in the college level. I mean, that's something, NBA, teams get a week-long road trip and those kind of things. Major League Baseball teams, that's a taxing deal for a squad to go out and spend 7 days on the road like we just did.
Yeah, and it's not normal. Yeah. You know, the COVID thing kind of dictated that for us this time, and you mentioned we're going to have another one.
That's right.
So
yeah.
Definitely not looking forward to that after what this one felt like. But, yeah, it's a long trip. You know, guys missed 5 days of class.
Let's take them in chronological order. Let's go back to last Tuesday. That game against Oregon had been postponed twice. Supposed to be on, December 30th. Then it was January 3rd. We made that trip out to Eugene, Oregon. Had a nice swing. We went out there and had a nice supper and came home after a night in the hotel. And when that one was called off on the 3rd, you finally get that ball game back. Kind of go back and give us a thought or two about that one. What a great win for Colorado.
Yeah, it was a great win for us, to start that road trip. And that was really weird because, we were there not too long before that. And,
right.
Got the news right before we were at shoot-around that we weren't going to play that night. And so that was a downer for the guys, just being able to deal with that. But, no, it ended up being really good for us. We found a way to win that game towards the end and made enough shots and, give our guys credit. That's a tough place to go win, as we know.
To go in and play that team and to dig a hole like the Buffs did in that ball game. I got to be honest with you. It was 20-5, I think, at one point. You're down 15 points at Oregon, who maybe outside of Arizona at that time was the hottest team in the league. They'd won 6 straight games, went in and knocked off both LA teams, 2 top 10 teams, on the road like they did. I mean, that's not the ideal way to start a basketball game like that, being down 15 points.
No, it was not the way to start. But, they made some really tough shots at the start of that game. And we knew eventually, our defense would kind of settle in a little bit. And we were able to get some stops, and then we made some good baskets, made some threes, and we felt like, as the game kept going, we were going to be able to score. And that's always a nice feeling when we felt like we could do that. Some nights it's a little harder.
Yeah, Colorado's been shooting the three ball much better here the last few ball games. Now, other shots weren't falling, of course, yesterday in Pullman, Washington. But back to that Oregon game. You got a young team, and sometimes there are times, I think, where they don't know what they don't know, and that can be a good thing, being down 15 at Oregon, being able to fight back. And the flip side of that would be maybe what we saw yesterday in Pullman. But kind of take us to the huddle. You're down 15 points. What's the conversation like with a team down 20-5 at that point?
Well, what Coach Boyle's, talk is going to be in those timeouts. It's going to be about getting stops
sure.
and getting our defense shored up. And that's the thing with our team that we're trying to get them to understand is some nights, you're gonna have some good offense going, mm-hmm. and when you're not, you're going to have to dig your heels in. And that's what we were able to do against Oregon a little bit and started getting some stops. Last night, we weren't as fortunate to make that happen.
Is maybe one of the toughest lessons to teach a team like this, as young as they are, is the idea of playing with the consistent intensity you need to play with in a league like this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that, you know, all young players, you know, have to learn and go through a little bit.
Sure.
And playing on the road is definitely different. You know, you don't have your home crowd, you know, supporting you a little bit. So we've got to get more consistent, and it's something we keep talking about. And you know, that's all you can do is just keep going back to work the next day and getting better.
You know, that ball game in Eugene, you guys kept kind of chipping away at it. Finally, with, I don't know, when it was 8-9 minutes or so, if memory serves, you finally tie the game. You get your first lead at that point in time. And then maybe didn't handle things against the press that you knew you guys were going to face against Oregon. Maybe didn't handle that as well as you wanted to down the stretch, but still were able to pull the ball game out.
Yeah, we knew, you know, anytime you play Oregon, you know you're going to have to do with their press, more likely at home, you know, at their place than on the road. But it's a forte of theirs that they go to, and we were able to handle it well enough,
right,
you know, to not let it, you know, end up being in the loss column. And so that was kind of a tribute to our guys because they haven't had to deal with that on the road yet. But we found a way.
We'll go ahead and take a timeout. We're live at Corelli's. It's Buffs Prime Time. Back in a moment. This is Colorado basketball from their field.
The season, but a comeback for the Buffs as they tried their best to get back into this game after a rough start to the second half. Jabari Walker leading the way again for Colorado, and Clifford also had to contribute.
The second game of that 3-game road trip, the Buffs were in Seattle, had a close loss against the Washington Huskies. Back here at Corelli's, Buffs Primetime Monday nights from 7 until 8. We continue our conversation talking Colorado basketball with Mike Rohn. Tad's always got that line about not getting drunk in your own wine. He uses that all the time, right? So you get a big win like that. Then the next morning, we jump in a plane, we fly to Seattle. You got Washington coming up, a team that Colorado had already beaten this season. Comment or two about ends up being a 2-point loss to Washington, but a frustrating game. I know Tad was very upset after that one.
Yeah, it was a little frustrating. You know, I think when we look back at you know, that game and the Washington State game, and you know, you got to give a little credit to them as well.
Sure.
You know, I mean, UW played a really good game, and obviously Washington State, you know, played really, really well yesterday. And sometimes we forget that the other team's trying to beat our brains out too,
yep,
and preparing to beat us. And you know, our guys really battled back in that game against UW, and we had a chance. You know, we got the ball to Jabari at the end of that game to tie it up, and we didn't get a great shot, but, you know, we made some things happen at the end that were really good, and we gave ourselves a chance to win, and, you know, we just weren't able to pull that one out.
That was a little bit of a tough game for me to get my head around. I went back to look at some of the notes I wrote down afterward. You got beat 21-7 in points off turnovers, 38-14 points in the paint, 21-7 outscored on fast break points. Gave up 16 steals. How in the world were you guys even in the ball game at the end of that contest?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the phrase that Coach used, you know, and you know, sometimes you just got to find other ways to make it happen when you're not playing very well.
Sure.
And I think in that game we defended a little bit better, and you know, it gave us a chance. And those statistics are a little staggering because you would think it would just be, you know, a blowout.
Sure. That whatever we saw last night in Washington State. Now, I know you guys were all breaking down film on the way home last night to play. What's the takeaway from what we saw yesterday? Because that was, you know, Tad came out and said that was about as bad a game as he said we've had since I've been here.
Yeah, and there's a lot of truth to that. I actually went back today and looked at it over the last 12 years, and I think there's been maybe 2 or 3 that kind of ended up that way for us. And so, you know, we were right there watching it live, so we kind of knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, when you watch the film, you're not quite as bad as maybe you think. But
you know
in that one, we were.
You know, the best part of being the plane ride home, I always sit 4 rows back, so Tad's in the front, and Mike and the other assistants are up here, and they're all watching film on the way home. They're all on their iPads watching the game. And the best part of that, from my viewpoint, is sitting and watching, because every once in a while you'll just see one of them go, oh, and they just throw their hands in the air while they're watching the game, and then you share it with each other. And it's got to be frustrating, but it's what you guys have to do, right?
Yeah, that's the way we have to learn, you know, and we're still learning this team,
yeah,
you know. It's a day-to-day process for us, and I think, you know, I think this team is continuing to get better. I think last night was it was weird, you know. It was very unlike this team. You know, we've kind of always found a way to keep fighting and find, you know, just kind of like buck up a little bit.
Sure.
And last night, for some reason, we just couldn't quite do it. And you know, nobody was more disappointed than the players and frustrated. Yeah. And you know, they've they're just going to have to learn from it and, you know, move forward.
You know, I don't know if this is oversimplifying it. As we're broadcasting the game, I thought to myself, our guys just looked like they weren't dialed in, like just, you know, there was a bit of a fog there for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
And that's got to be frustrating on the bench when you and Tan and the rest of the staff, you're looking for answers. You're down a couple of guys because, well, 3 guys. It was Lawson being out, Tristan not being there, then Eli not playing last night. You're looking for answers, and at some point you're like, where do you go? What do you do?
Yeah, we kept looking down the bench, and it was like, what are we going to do? And usually we're pretty deep, and, you know, we can find a way to, ignite a little different energy into the game. And last night we weren't able to do that, you know, as we looked down there. I certainly wasn't going in, that's for sure.
You know, I asked Tad afterward, I said, you know, there are some coaches that'll just flush the tape. Say, you know what, that was a bad game. We're going to flush the tape. Everyone knows it wasn't good. And Tad was very clear. We're not that kind of staff. That's not what we do.
I don't think we've ever done that.
Right.
You know, you're right. Some people do. Maybe we've done that one time.
Yeah.
But you know, this team still needs to learn, and we need to find out why. And you know, Coach challenged them. You know, when we got back late last night, you know, to come with some answers. You know, tomorrow, like, why did we not have the energy that we needed to have?
Sure.
Regardless of who was there and who was not there. You know. We just, we got to, that's why we're a team. You know, other guys got to step up. And last night, you know, we just didn't have anybody really step up and play very well to kind of get us going a little bit. And it was unfortunate.
As the Buffaloes get ready for Oregon, that quick rematch of last Tuesday to this Thursday. That's an 8 o'clock game on Thursday night. We're going to hit the air at 7:30 on the network. We'll go ahead and take a timeout here at Corelli's. It's Buffs Prime Time. Dominic Clifford's going to join us next out of Colorado Springs, a sophomore.
Contact, no foul, outlet pass Simpson, up the right side, Clifford on his right, who elevates and slams with the right hand. That one is going to leave a mark. That one is going to be felt for generations into that young defender's family. Holy cow.
One of the great highlights of the 2021-22 college basketball season. Never get tired of that dunk by Nate Clifford. That was against USC. Back in the Buffalo Stampede here at Corelli's. We do Buffs Prime Time on Monday nights from 7 until 8 o'clock. And we had a chance to sit down for the native of Colorado Springs. Here he is, Nate Clifford, the sophomore from Colorado Springs. Well, you couldn't get through the crowd there. I mean, everyone had to stop you. They were kissing babies and taking photos and everything.
It's a lot of love in Boulder. So I appreciate everyone.
No doubt. How you doing?
Good.
Yeah?
Good. Just it's good to be back in Boulder. We were gone for a week, so it was a pretty long trip, tolling on the body. But it's good to be back.
You know, people might think, well, you're on the road, you're staying in nice hotels, you're eating very well. It's very relaxing.
Yeah, it is. It is
Yeah.
pretty nice. We get treated like kings on the road.
Yeah.
Really good food. Getting to play the game we love and just being with our teammates. So it's a fun time for sure.
You know, we heard Coach Roan talk about, Tad Boyle asking you guys for answers. You know, as you kind of sit and look back on that week, such an outstanding performance against Oregon, and then what transpired yesterday. What are your thoughts on it?
It wasn't the outcome we wanted this week. We, of course, wanted to go 3-0. Ended up going 1-2. And I think part of it was just our lack of concentration, and I think we weren't ready to go the last game.
Yeah.
It was a rough one for us, and we just couldn't figure out a way to respond when we got down. So we just got to get back to work tomorrow and come back and take care of business on Thursday.
You know, one of the aspects of learning about playing at this level is the consistency, isn't it? I mean,
yes.
you guys have had the opportunity, and you've done it a number of times. You kind of play with fire when you do it, like the Oregon game. You get yourself in a hole and able to kind of turn things midstream. That's not easy to do, number one. But number two, it's extremely difficult against very good teams. Is that part of the learning process you guys have got to figure out? We can't have the mental highs and lows, for example?
Yeah, a lot of the games this year, we've dug ourselves in holes and had to get out of it. And a lot of the games we've been able to and make them close games and fight. The last one, we weren't able to do that. We did it against Washington and made it a close game at the end. But that's part of the reason we were being unsuccessful in these last few games is just digging ourselves in that hole and not being able to come out of it. So we got to start off better, and that starts at practice. We got to get better.
Is that one of the things that you learn when you play at this level? Is because everyone's talented, right?
Yes.
I mean, you go out there and play. Every team you play against has got very athletic and very good basketball players you play against. Is the mental aspect of playing at this level, and then probably even more so when you jump to the NBA, but at this level, the mental aspect is something that separates great players from good players and great teams from good teams?
For sure. As the season goes on, everyone's getting more and more tired. Your body's getting tired, and that's where I think the mental aspect comes into it. You just got to play smart, and I think that's part of our issue is because all of our turnovers. That's a part of the reason we're not being successful right now is all of our turnovers, and I think that's just mental and concentration, being able to pass the ball cleanly, and just things like that. So we gotta grow up fast. We still got a lot of games left to play, and so that mental is going to show at the end of the season. So we got to take care of business right now.
Has there been a moment for you, when you were in high school and you were a great player down the Springs, right? And most of the time for anybody coming to play at this level, you were probably the most athletic guy in the court virtually every single night.
Right.
When you get here and everyone's athletic, it's probably natural to think, can I play at this level? Can I succeed at this level? Can I be really good at this level?
Yep.
Has there been a moment for you where the light went off and you went, oh, okay, I can play at this level and be a very good player?
Yes. This year, I think I seen that, and I feel like I could play at this level and succeed, but I just got to keep getting better as a player.
Sure.
I'm still learning and trying to figure everything out as well as the rest of my teammates, but there's no excuse for losing these games and stuff like that, so we just got to, like I said, get better. And for me personally, I'm going to stay in the gym and just work on my game and make sure I'm ready to go.
Well, we're certainly glad you're here. How about a quick thought about the rematch with Oregon? Quick turnaround to see the Ducks again. Give us a thought about that game on Thursday.
We got to be ready to go from the jump. Like I talked about, they're going to definitely be ready because we just beat them on their home floor, and they know they've never been able to beat us here on home court. So we got to be ready to go, have our game plan ready, and just come out and play harder than we did the last two games. So a few of our players are going to have to step up. We're out a couple guys, so but that's no excuse for us. We got to go out and put a show for the fans and hopefully bring home a win.
It's amazing what happens when you play with energy and effort, isn't it?
Right.
It's amazing what happens.
Changes the whole game.
It really does. Hey, keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
There's
Thank you
Nate
for having
Clifford,
me.
you bet. Sophomore from Colorado Springs. He and the Buffs have got the Oregon Ducks on Thursday night. Let's take a timeout. We're talking women's hoops. J.R. Payne going to join us after the split with Utah's last week.
Hollinshed guarded by Young. And Hollinshed with a push-up, no call. That would have been her fifth foul. I was just going to say, remember, she has 4 personal. Shot clock and game clock. Sadler almost lost it. Takes it up, strong and good. And a timeout called as Sadler adds to her totals. So close for the Utes. Big time road win for the Buffs.
That was a big week last week for the CU women's basketball team. They split against Utah. There's some highlights from the overtime victory in Salt Lake City at the Huntsman Center. Back in the Stampede here at Corelli's, where we do Buffs Prime Time Mondays from 7 until 8. And we talked with head coach J.R. Payne about those two games versus the Utes. J.R. Payne, we haven't talked for a couple of weeks since we weren't here. And we were traveling, and the week before that, you were traveling after your makeup game. And it is kind of chaos. It's kind of controlled chaos this season for all of us.
Yeah, it does. It's starting to feel very chaotic with the makeup games and, just being on the road like a full week like you guys just did it's exhausting, I think especially for our players who are also trying to be great students. And, and so it's definitely different.
All right, you guys get the split last week. Exciting win. We're in, I forget where we were, Washington, I guess, someplace. And so I'm keeping tabs on your game on Friday
yeah.
in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And it's back. I'm just looking at the score coming up, and it's back and forth and back and forth. You end up winning that one in overtime. Exciting game.
We did, yeah. And at that point, 3 of our last 4 games had gone to overtime.
Sure.
I mean, it's crazy. It's the amount of emotional roller coaster that goes into even just one overtime
That's
game.
almost mathematically impossible to do.
Right? I know. Yeah. So as soon as the buzzer sounded and we went overtime, I just looked at the team and said, third time's the charm. This is our game. Like, we are winning this game. And our team really leaned into each other and did a great job to get the win.
So take us in overtime, because a lot of times, and as long as I've been doing this, you're on the road and you hit overtime. That's awful tough for the visiting team to go out and pull that out.
Really tough, and I think just the fact that we had already lost 2 overtime games in the previous 5 days, and so emotionally you got to make sure that they're not going, oh, here we go again, that kind of thing. But we have a lot of veterans, and we have a lot of, people, seniors especially, that really stepped up in that moment, and talked about leaning into each other, stay composed, stay together, one possession at a time. I think when we can focus on the small picture instead of saying, oh man, overtime, it's like, no, we just need to get a stop, a score, and a stop. That's all we need. And then next time down,
just simplify it for them.
Simplify it, yeah. And our team did a great job. I mean, I think we outscored them 8-4 in overtime, and it was great execution.
So, being that you got them over, you go to overtime, you drop a couple close ones against very good teams as you had after your phenomenal start to the season.
Yep.
With a young team, that would be awful tough waters to navigate, I would think. With a veteran team like you've got, I'd imagine they're mature enough to understand that and kind of accept it.
Yeah, and I think we're fine. I think we're still trying to figure that lineup back again. We had plugged other people in, and maybe now they're a little bit out of position, and so we're going to be fine. We've got a lot of talent. We've got depth. We've got veterans, and we just got to kind of get ourselves back.
Give us a thought about this series you got coming. You got Washington State and Washington this week. Give us a thought or two about that.
Washington State was an NCAA tournament team last year, really good. They have a couple New Zealand players. One of them was the freshman of the year in the conference last year, actually led the league in scoring as a freshman last year. So they're all back. They're very good.
Yeah.
They're kind of a weird matchup because they play a bunch of guards and then one really good post player, and so it's hard to guard them because they're so skilled and versatile. And but it's going to be great. It's going to be a big weekend.
We're looking forward to it. I look forward to getting this show on a regular basis so we can talk.
Yes,
to you a little more
and wonderful to have all of you back
great?
again. It's fantastic.
Isn't this fantastic having them all here? Hey, go get the Cougars on Friday.
All right, we'll do.
JRP and the women will take on Washington State on Friday and then Washington on Sundays. We put a wrap this week on Buffs Primetime out here at Corelli's. We are going to be back next week unless something changes the schedule. But thanks for joining us. This is Colorado Basketball from Learfield.